Welcome to the Imbalance Podcast, a place where we navigate the struggles and perks of single mom life, the ebbs and flows of my work in the beauty industry, quality relationships, working through personal traumas, and finding our higher purpose. Sounds like a lot of struggling? Well, it is. So grab a drink and let's try and balance it together, because who said we have to navigate through this chaos alone? Welcome to the Imbalance Podcast, to your weekly dose of mom brain, unfinished tasks, work fatigue, and simply trying to balance the unbalanceable with me, Kat, your host. So today I have someone who has been such a huge influence in my life. She was my first real therapist that I found in Nashville like 5 or 6 years ago, and she has been through the depths of hell with me. Basically, when it comes to dealing with the things that I was dealing with at the time. So to me, she is just someone that I'll never forget. And to top it off, she has done such specialized work in the psychology field. Some of her work has been featured in the Oprah magazine, on Pop Sugar and CBS TV. Her name is Dylesia Hampton, and she is a licensed therapist who specializes in helping women with absent, abusive, and neglectful moms figure out healing life and womanhood, including how to break the generational curse of mother-daughter trauma with their daughters. She is the founder, CEO, and director of mental, emotional, and spiritual care at Radical Change Therapy, a multi-state virtual mental health practice servicing clients located in DC, Virginia, Maryland, Tennessee, and Colorado. Dylesia also has a namesake YouTube channel where she shares therapeutic strategies for women seeking to recover from mother-daughter trauma. I'm happy that I'm able to have her in this space with me so that I can share her with all of you guys. And I hope that a lot of this resonates with people, because when it comes to the relationships with our parents, we don't realize whether it's issues with our mom or issues with our dad or our siblings or whatnot. It can pour into the relationships we end up having with other people as we become adults. So if we never solve the issues that we have, whether that means we fix the problem between our parents or you cut them off if they are not serving you as they should in your life, that is something that you have to navigate in order to have healthy relationships as an adult. You cannot still hold on to unhealthy things while trying to have healthy relationships with people. So again, I'm so happy to have her here. I hope you guys enjoy the show. Thank you for listening. All right. Thank you for joining us, Miss Dylesia. How are you
Thank
today?
you. I'm good. You know, you got the little sexy voice, so it helps me be in the mood. You really do. I don't know if anybody
Really?
told you that. Yeah, it's like a phone line operator voice.
That's hilarious. I mean, I've had a lot of people say you have a great voice for this
You do.
podcast. So now when they say that, I know what they mean by that.
Yeah, they just not as ghetto as me. You know, they're not gonna
They're
come
not
out
going to
and
keep it
say
100 like
that.
that. All right. I want you to start off by just telling everybody who you are
Okay.
and what you come with and what led you to the sacred space that you're holding today.
I love that you said, "What do I come with?" Ooh, girl, a lot. Okay, so I mean, I'm Dylesia, which obviously everybody knows that if you're watching this, because I'm sure you've introduced me.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to start with like professional stuff because that stuff does not matter to me. I
Yeah.
only have it so that I can have the impact that I want to have. You know, obviously, I wouldn't have been able to be a therapist if I didn't have the credentials to do so. So I am an LCSW. But more importantly than doing any of that is just sitting with people and helping them through their struggles, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Mother-daughter trauma is something that I specialize in. I'm actually currently getting a doctorate. I'll be done in May. And my dissertation focus also was mother-daughter trauma. But even the reasons for that is not so that people can call me Dr. Varner. It's so that I can help people in a different way. Some people are not going to listen to you until you have doctor in front of your name. And then additionally, there's also a lot of limitations that you have to making policy changes and then impacting academia, which impacts how clinicians are taught how to help people through this. So, I mean, all of my credentials are because I want to do the work that I do. What led me to the work that I do, though, is my own mother daughter trauma journey. As a person who shares their story, it's not even all about sharing it, it's a healing journey for you too.
Mm.
So, I'm helping people, but I'm also healing along the way. Every post that I post, every video that I do, anything that I do that relates to this, it requires me to dig a little bit deeper into myself to, find a way to help other people, but also to help myself through everything that, I've overcome. So it really, that's what led me. Is like I wanted to heal, and I knew that healing through sharing is like the greatest form of healing. I don't know if you've ever
Mhm.
heard someone talk about like you don't really know something until you're challenged to teach it. That's how I
Yes.
look at being a healer who heals themselves out loud. It's like if I can do this enough to get somebody else on board to heal themselves, then I know for sure that my healing is legit. So, and it also keeps me honest too,
Mhm.
I think about how many people are watching me, and not that I'm making decisions for people, but it's like, okay, Dylesia, so you said you wouldn't tolerate this or you wouldn't put up with that, or like you have to stay honest, because if you slip, then somebody else is going to, and who knows what that leads to. We'll get into it a little bit more, as your questions unfold, but with my mother-daughter trauma journey, it could have definitely ended in me losing my life, and not necessarily because
Mhm.
my mom would have done it, but I would have killed
Mhm.
myself. And I cannot be responsible for slipping and then someone else actually doing that, or someone who's in a situation where their mom might be volatile to the point of homicide and that happened. So it's like there is a lot of weight that I carry, but it just all it just keeps me honest, and then it keeps my daughters being parented by a healthy mom, and it just all works together for the good.
Yes. Ooh,
I
hold
said
on.
a
Let
lot.
me just No, I thank you, because that's why I said who what you come with,
Yeah.
because it's not just as simple like, "Oh, I'm a mother of 2 girls and I had mother-daughter trauma and then I did this." It's like your whole life has been a testament to how healing can really help people, and
Yeah.
diving into, you know, what we have been through in our past does not have to be what we are in the future.
Hmm.
We can come out of it like 10 times better. And I love that you mentioned, first of all, congratulations for working towards your doctorate degree. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Um, but how you mentioned, like, you don't want to just do that just to call so people can call you doctor. People look at certain people differently with a title in front of their name. And sometimes it's unfortunate, but sometimes it's like it takes a lot of work to get there. So it's like I understand that. And it just looks like you want to reach as many people as you can, and like you said, learn any all of the things that you can, so that if anything comes your way, you always are able to help people. And I think that is amazing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you're so right though, because even through the process of writing my dissertation, I've learned so much to back up the things that I've been telling people all along. Like now I got references and resources, So
Right.
it's definitely been a journey of curiosity, but I think that this curiosity has definitely just pushed me to heal, but also other people for sure.
Yeah. I in the introduction, I let people know that you were my therapist at one point, and
I can't confirm or deny that, but
but you have influenced me
mhm.
over the past 5 or 6 years of my life. And so that happened because you were one of the first people that I knew to publicly talk about the specific subject of mother daughter trauma. And now there are a lot more people who speak about family trauma or generational trauma. But how does it feel to have been one of the first people to kind of highlight that subject?
I that's a really good question, because I feel like there are a lot of different angles I could take on it. And I think the
Mm-hmm.
most popular angle would be like, oh, great, I have sort of cornered this market. And I mean, that's great too. Like, of course, that
Right.
means that you've sealed a career for yourself, like people are always going to, even if they don't quote you, like everyone knows that they got to quote you. But I think
Mm-hmm.
more important to me is what I just said, that me healing, me sharing is me working on myself. So if there are more people doing that kind of work, then that means there are more people healing and there are more generational curses being broken.
Mm.
So I think I
Yeah.
look at it from not the angle of like my career being solidified or anything of that nature, or me even being referenced far after my death. It's more so that like, wow, if other people are talking about it, because talking is the first step. If we're talking about it, then there's a chance that this could actually erase itself to some extent, you know, in our generation, in the next one, who knows? So I think it just feels very humbling. It also feels, you know, similar to what you said earlier, which was that my whole life has been a testament. And I'm a big, like, let's turn these lemons into lemonade person. So if something
Mhm.
happens to me, like, you best believe I'm looking for a way to make it work out in my favor. And that's what I think this is. It's like, wow, everything I've come from, everything that happened to me, you know, not just in my life as a whole, but at the hands of my mom, it all makes sense. You know, it makes it like, and I hate to say worth it because I don't think we really need trauma. Like, I would love to not
Yes.
have any of this, but if I'm going to have it, let's make it work for me. And I think that that is proof that God is real, you know, that Romans 8:28 is true, that all things really do work together for our good. But of course, we have to work them too. You can't just sit around and, oh, woe is me, this happened. You really do have to get in there and figure out like strategies and what can I do. For me, there was no one to look to. Like, I would even go to therapy and I would try to talk to my mom, talk about my mom rather, and people would be like, well, that's your mom. You know, I was even hearing
Yes.
this in a therapy session.
Yep.
And I would leave and just feel like, dang, so did I really get helped? Or like, was I just judged? Or like, what am I supposed to do with this? Because that I don't feel how I think I'm supposed to feel after therapy. And you know, therapy, sometimes you feel crazy after. But
Right.
it wasn't like a good challenge. I felt like shamed, you know, like, dang, well, maybe I should go talk to her and let her talk any kind of way to me and abuse me.
Yeah.
But I realized in the midst of that, they're like, dang, nobody knows how to handle this. And Dylesia, you have to become the person who knows how to. And not so that your
Mm.
horn can be tooted or anything, but just so that you can create a blueprint that others can follow so that people don't have to feel this way. I would encounter therapists oftentimes who also had trauma with their moms. And what I found was like it was just a dead zone for them. Like they
Yes.
hadn't known how to lead themselves through it, so there was no way they could help me through it. I knew none of it was in our textbooks, you know, because I've seen the textbooks. So it
Right.
just really felt like you're called to do this. You have to do something about it. So I think that that's really what drives me is that I know that absent of me putting things out there in the universe to help people, there's really not anything. And then a lot of people who talk about and share their stories of family trauma, you know, we're all at a different phase of our healing, and that's fine. A lot of it is really just venting and like, you know, being
Mhm.
negative. And while I am very cautious with the way that I use the word forgiveness,
Mhm.
forgiveness is central to your healing. Like there's no way that you cannot forgive someone and actually still walk in a space of peace. So I don't always talk about that at the forefront of my message because I know that that word is triggering for the audience that I serve.
Right.
But a lot of the things that I do see online are far from forgiveness. You know, they're just somebody like bashing someone, and there's no, you can feel the spirit behind it, and the spirit isn't healthy. But I also know if they stay in the game long enough and if they really do the work that they're supposed to do, that those messages are going to change and morph over time. And so are the ways that their audience, if they follow them, you know, heals over time. Obviously, my message, it wasn't really different when I became a mom, but like different layers became a part of it. So I think that, you know, just to answer your question, because I have all these long answers to them, but
It's
to answer your
okay.
question, it feels good. Like I'm just happy. I feel like it's like you set a tree on fire, and we don't want to set trees on fire, but you set a tree on fire, and then the
Hypothetically.
whole forest burns. And I just feel like, okay, go
Yeah.
God, glory to
Yes.
God.
Yeah, no, he's using you for
Yeah.
sure. And we're all thankful for that. And kind of going back to you were talking about forgiveness. I again, this probably is not like clinically correct because I'm not a
Mhm.
doctor or anything like that, but I almost call it acceptance. Like accept
Mhm.
who someone is, and maybe you can't like forgive what they did because you can't
Yeah.
you feel like you're trying to justify it in a way,
Mhm.
but accepting who they are so then you can choose to like either proceed or move differently with them or completely let them go, you know? So
I would agree with that. I usually, because I think a lot of people mix forgiveness and restoration, and they're really not the same thing. Like, I can forgive
Mm,
someone, but also be wise. Like, forgiveness has to come with wisdom, because
yes.
otherwise, you're going to be constantly forgiving this person. And I think a key for me to determine if I need to restore someone, my mom included in this, is will I have to forgive them for this again? How soon might I have to
Mm,
do that? Can I actually heal in between the durations of time that are going to be, because my husband gets on my nerves every day. But, it's
yeah.
not to the point where, like, dang, he always doing something and I'm living with so much resentment in my heart towards him that I can't
Right.
even move on and have relationships with other people. It got to that point with my mom because I knew that every single conversation we had, they all looked the same. I left all of them feeling the same. There was never any, like, light in the midst of the
Yes.
darkness.
Right.
So that's how I knew I can't restore her. And then also that I need the distance to be able to forgive her. One thing I
Mm,
always say as well is, like, you can only keep people as close to you as you can still love them. So, like, me and my
mm,
mom talking every single day, I can't love her because the things that come out of her mouth, like, are so destructive. But I have found the ability to love her by not speaking to her anymore. And I think that you have to play with that, and figure out exactly what that is and stand in it, because people are going to challenge you. They're going to say, that's your mom. How could you do that? But you know that love is your ultimate instruction from God. I mean, that's all over the Bible. All we're
yeah.
supposed to do is love people. And I think that if I know that that is my instruction, that I have an obligation in order to be obedient to that, that I have to put people at the distances where I can obey that. And that's what
Yeah.
I did with my mom.
Yeah. And that you had every right to do that.
Yeah.
Um, and you kind of touched on like how it feels like going through mother daughter trauma, but then also having children.
Mm.
How do you feel like that may have changed things, maybe opened new doors as far as emotions, or maybe it closed some things? Like, how did that change you?
So while I do have kind of the world watching, I guess you could say, I also am very serious about making sure I honor myself first. So when I got pregnant, everyone was like, are you going to tell your mom? Like, what's going to happen? Like, that was the hot
Mm-hmm.
topic question. And for me, it was like, well, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you no, because that almost feels like I'm trying to predict the future. And I'm saying, like, even if I want to, I won't. And that's
Yeah.
not true. It's just, it depends on the circumstances. Because who's to say she won't find out that I'm pregnant and then the natural maternal instincts kick in that I never saw her have, but maybe they will kick in. And
Mm-hmm.
who knows what'll happen. So I was always like, well, we'll see what happens. But if things stay the way that they are, then no. And I think I was waiting for a time where I would feel like you need to contact her. But
Mm,
also in my mind, there was like, well, if you contact her, what will she do? I think that, I knew like what I saw on TV or what we see on Instagram. Like, there's a super popular reel that went around recently where a lady, her mom and her grandmother came to take care of her after she had a baby. I don't know if you saw it, but it was so
I don't think
beautiful.
so.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, my mom wouldn't do that. So, like, me calling her is really not going to help me much.
Right.
So I say that to say that I really did wait, and nothing, it never came up. Like, I didn't miss her. I didn't want her. I will say, after I got pregnant, though, I had no idea that you, like, have to recover from pregnancy. I know that sounds so stupid, but nobody ever told me. So I didn't know that, like, there's, all this afterbirth process that happens, and
Yes.
you need some help, okay? I didn't have any, though. Like,
And
my
you had
daughters were,
2. You
yeah,
had
I had
twins.
two. My girls were in the NICU too, so that brought on so many emotions. Like, I just had babies, now they're taken away from me. I'm feeling like they're in the custody of somebody, and I'm having to beg to see them, because that's really how it
Right.
is when your kids are in the NICU. And then on top of that, all these foreign substances are coming out of my body. Like, what is going
Mhm.
on? I
Mhm.
can barely walk. There's just so many things happening. And I realized in that moment, because at a lot of times, it's almost like when you see all these people being married and stuff, and then you're like, I wonder how marriages work. That's really how I felt about mothers and daughters. Like, I didn't know how that worked. When I would hear my friends
Yeah.
say, yeah, I'm going on a trip with my mom, I'm like, you go on trips with your mom? Like, how weird is that? So, in essence, in a
Yes.
lot of ways, I really wasn't sure what a mom could do for me, because there had been
Mm.
so long that I hadn't had one. And that was not even once the estrangement started. That was like that was when I was younger. Like my mom had put me in a position where I was independent for
Mhm.
myself at the very least. I didn't have to take care of my siblings. You know, there were a couple times, but for the most part, it was just like, you're on your own. Like, I was
Yeah.
the child that was not her child. So I just really didn't know what a mom could do. But I remember laying there in the bed and like I needed something. Nigel's at work because he decided to take his. We decided that he would take his leave once the girls got out the hospital because it just made the most sense. And
Yeah.
I'm sitting there and I'm like, dang, I got to figure out how to get up. And this is what moms are for. And it
Mhm.
dawned on me like, dang, okay, so moms are really necessary and you need one.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in that moment, though, I was really able to differentiate that, like, you don't want your mom because she wouldn't do this.
Yeah.
You just want a mom. And I was like, dang, like, so I will say that it brought open that. And
Mm.
just like I think now in my life, I'm so aware of all the ways that a mom would be helpful. Like, I stay at home with my girls, and they're parenting kids is like a learning journey every day. You don't
Yeah.
know anything. I mean,
Mhm.
unless someone sat down and taught you. I know that there are women who have moms who did that, but there are so many of us who don't have that. And
Yeah.
it's just like every day I'm just like, dang, I wish somebody would told me that or that or that or that. Like I just wish
Right.
I had a guide and I don't. So I think it opened that up, but that didn't connect to my mom because I know that she's incapable of offering me the things that I was wanting, but I still had a longing for someone to do that.
Mhm.
And it's nobody there. So,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
just me.
Yeah, and it's like some may listen and think like that's so sad, and it is sad, but that's just reality that you're in, and it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that, like, first of all, that gap of not having your mom there, of course it would be more helpful to have a mom, but again, sometimes the person that you want to be there, that's not going to be the right person.
Exactly.
Why do some moms not want to change for their daughters, do you think?
I think that, and I would say this is more than a thought because I've actually seen it happen, in real time, working with
Mhm.
moms and daughters, and then working with moms, and then also working with daughters. Healing is hard, and I say that not to like say excuse your mom for not wanting to heal,
Right.
but when you really think about healing, if you've done it, it is an undoing of yourself. Like you are tearing yourself to shreds. And I
Mhm.
think that beyond moms, like people are not for that. It's like, let me just keep my life stable and routine. It may not be exactly how I want it to be. I may not be feeling fulfilled, but I also have what I know is going to happen. Like it's the devil that you know. And I
Yeah.
think that daughters, we have to not take it so personally. It's like this person, now granted, the changes would impact your relationship with them, but ultimately it's going to impact themselves too. Like it's going to help your mom a lot if she were to change. If she
Mhm.
changes, like let's say your mom is somebody who is verbally abusive. She verbally abuses everybody. It's not isolated to just you. I'm sure there's a trail of people who have been abused by her. And her doing that and deciding to change is going to mean that her relationships improve, not just the one with you, but the relationship that she has with whoever else in her life. And so
Mhm.
I think if you look at it as like she's not changing and she's not doing it for herself, because it really isn't about you. It's about her quality of life, and all of those different things. So I really just think it's fear. It's fear of like what's next. I know what's here. It doesn't feel good, but I know what I'm going to get every single day. I know who I'm going to be. I know how people are going to respond to that. If I go out here changing, I don't know what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
I think that that's what it is, the fear. But I just want every daughter listening, though, to know that your mom is not making a decision to change for you or not for you. It really just goes back to herself. And because of the fact that she probably didn't have the best relationship with her mom and was
Yeah.
deprioritized, she doesn't know how to center herself and even want to have better. It's just life is what it is. So it really is, it's a lot more than having anything to do with you.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you've done lots of things to spread awareness about the topic of mother-daughter trauma. Which avenue has been the most effective to getting the word out and reaching the most people?
That's a good question. I think that for now, I would say, oh God, that's so hard because you have certain levels of impact in certain spaces. So, like when I was doing therapy actively, so for everybody listening, I am a therapist, but I no longer practice. I actually stopped practicing about a year ago. And that was probably the most powerful work that I've done, because you're
Mhm.
one on one with someone, you're actually like they're allowing you into their life, and you are bit by bit, just like helping them analyze, strategize. Like that is very powerful. However,
Mhm.
it's limiting because there are only but so many people you're able to touch in spaces like that. I mean, you get burnt out, like there, you
Mhm.
can't have 1,000 sessions a week. Whereas if you take your talents to the internet, which is what I did, you're able to reach an unlimited amount of people. I think I've really enjoyed Instagram. I love writing. And Instagram allows you to write captions. Sometimes my captions be so long and I be having to go delete some words and then add it back.
Yeah.
But I really love writing, so I think that that's been super effective. But I also have recently moved into YouTube, and I'm noticing that that's, helping me reach different people. So I think that every platform has its like it has its perks to it, and
Mhm.
all of them just kind of work together. I think for me, I really want to take over every platform because I want this
Mhm.
message to be widespread. But I'm always going to have a heart for one to one work, even though I don't really have the capacity for it anymore. I think for me, when I was deciding if I wanted to continue or not, it was like, okay, so you are helping people grow and learn skills and, almost like growing them up in a sense. And then you
Yeah.
have two daughters that once you cut that computer off, they're waking up and you're doing the exact same thing for.
Yep.
And while I've never looked at my clients like my children, like, I've really looked at them like sisters, because most of them are women. It was still the same energy, and I had to choose. And it was like, y'all, I love y'all, but I'm going to choose these babies. So
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
really what happened. But I will always have a heart for just sitting one on one with somebody and like hearing their heart and helping them figure their way through it all. So
Yeah.
I miss it, but I can't do anything with that missing that I have for it.
Yeah, and your babies are so young, like
Yeah.
you never know. They can get older and you can have more time and then you can do something with that. You never know. But I can relate to that. I only work specific days because I'm just like I don't have the capacity to take on all these people and then also come home and do all of the mom stuff to my best degree. I can still do it, but I'm not going to be my best self. And I think people who really like love you understand that. And anyone, I was just writing on somebody's post earlier. It was a hairstylist who was just talking about how she doesn't know if her time is just up in the industry because she's had trouble like building clients after so many years and like taking off when she had children. And she was kind of overcompensating when she was talking about like I love my clients so much. I don't, all this stuff and I'm like, at the end of the day, you can love your clients, but they're consumers. At least, as a
Yeah.
hairstylist, they're consumers and they're going to go with whomever is more convenient for them at the time. But that doesn't mean that it's wrong that you took your break with your child, and that doesn't mean you can't come back. You just have to change things around and strategize. So yeah, I just love that you said that too.
It's so hard though. And I
Yeah.
get messages now that be like, you think
Hey,
you gonna take
hey.
some client? I'm like, girl, you see somebody else at my office. Why
Right.
are you messaging me?
Like goodbye right
Yeah,
now.
I
But
think you have given a lot of people a lot of hope because people are like, okay, so the babies they gonna grow up and then she gonna come back.
my
I
bad.
don't know that, y'all. I'm not promising
Not
that.
anytime soon. Maybe like they're when they're like 20 years old and they're off out of the house or something that
We'll
she's
see.
doing some type of spiritual like
Yeah, maybe like a retreat or something. I don't know. We'll see.
yeah, but that's up to you and God and whatever y'all have planned for that.
Yeah, for
Um, and for those who you guys all everyone who's watching needs to follow you as well because I love I do look forward to your captions and your posts. Like, it's not like you just post a picture. You give us a whole rundown and you put a little bit of your swag into, the
Yeah.
caption. And I love that. Like, I'm sure you've built community off of just being so real, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that people really just look forward to having strategies. I mean, because that's something I put in my post too. Like, I'll be like, okay, so this is a scenario that I went through, and then this is exactly what I did to fix it. And not to say that that's always going to work for every person. Like,
Right.
don't follow my stuff to a T, because your situation could be different. But I think from what I've heard from people who inbox me, it gives them the ability to go to their therapist with my post and be like, okay, so this is what I want to work on. And I find that so, that's like, I don't even know what to call that. Like heartwarming times 1,000 that people are
Yeah.
literally using my Instagram content to help their therapist work through, mother daughter trauma with them. But I really think that I just value putting out actually good content. Like, I don't want you to just look at my pictures. I want you to be able to look at it, see signs. Like, I know you asked me earlier about signs of how to determine if your relationship with your mom is toxic or, is not working.
Hey all! Some of you may already know this, but besides being your podcast host, I'm also a cosmetologist. I have been in the beauty industry for the past 12 years, and I specialize in curly hair care, hair cutting, and coloring in the Northern Virginia area. My books are open, and if you'd ever like to book an appointment with me, please visit my website at www.kathlena.com. I also offer an adult and child versions of my ebook, Your Natural Hair Wash and Go Style Guide, which provides key information behind the science of hair, step-by-step wash, condition, and styling process, product recommendations, and more. Purchase right now and enjoy $10 off, no code required. Now back to the show.
And, what I always think about is like, it starts off as an isolated event
Mm-hmm.
between you and your mom. Because, when you're young, like my girls, they got their dad in the house. They don't care. Like, they want me all the time. They do not care. If I am visible, mom is who we want.
Right.
And so your relationship with her is extremely isolated, but eventually it becomes a spirit, and I don't mean to preach, I will preach and I will cuss. I will do
That's
those things.
that's
But
okay.
it's like it eventually becomes a spirit and it permeates every one of the relationships you have. Just like your mom is toxic in all her relationships, you're probably a manifestation of that toxicity in yours too. So I always tell people to look at your relationships. Like, there's so much research that I'm discovering now that's saying that your emotional intelligence, your social success, your impulse control, all those come from your mom. If she never taught you that stuff, it's going to be evident in the way that you interact with other people. And I think that people look at my posts to determine, like, am I on the right track here? What could I be doing differently? And I really love that I'm like a therapist aide for folks.
Yeah. Wow. I think you nailed it. When you said some people may not realize they have been being abused by their mom basically their whole life until they start getting older, getting into relationships, and nothing's working out.
Nothing.
And it's like, what the hell? Like, even if it's something that somebody else did, it's like, well, why do I keep choosing the same type of people?
It's not even always that the people are abusive. Sometimes it's like you don't know how to advocate for yourself. Because I'll
Yeah.
say with me and my husband, for instance, like he's definitely not an abuse. Like neither of us are abusive. However, he grew up in an environment. He was a middle child, and there was a lot of contention between his parents, and so he never really learned how to like be romantic or none of those things. So from the outside looking in, like if you were to see how he treated holidays and things like that when we first got together, you would be like, that man does not really care. Because if it's February, girl, and February 14th is Valentine's Day, my gift is getting ordered that day and I might get it next month. But that's because like no one really, like you have to
Right.
learn those kinds of things. So I
Exactly.
think for me going into that, if I hadn't known how to be assertive already, that was something I had to learn throughout, my life. Not something I learned at home, because like you don't talk back to my mom or articulate your needs to her. Like that is not something that's welcome. So if I didn't learn that before coming into this relationship, and I put this on the internet that like people are doing now, oh, he's a narcissist, he doesn't care about you. Like it would be
Yeah.
slam town for him.
Yeah.
But it's like a lot of times it's not even an abusive person. It's just how you carry yourself in relationship with others. Because 9 times out of 10, if you advocate your needs to a reasonable individual, they're going to try to figure out how to meet them. So
Mhm.
I always think about like throughout healing, one of the hardest parts of it is realizing how much you've gaslit yourself and how
Yeah.
much of a role you've played in your own suffering, because some of the people ain't abused you, sis. Like, you just did not
Right.
speak up for yourself, and you didn't speak up for yourself because you didn't grow up in an environment where you were taught how to do that. So sometimes it's just that it's not clear abuse, it's just
Mhm.
the situation is not conducive to what you want, but like, open your mouth.
Mhm. Yeah. Whew. I feel like you talking to me.
No, I didn't mean
No, no, not in a bad way. I just meant because it's like that's what I needed to hear
to.
a
Yeah.
long time ago. I feel like I'm now at the point where it's like, man, just being able to advocate for yourself, and you can't even do that unless you really know yourself either. So
Mhm.
I'm at the point where I'm kind of like the self-discovery, like who I really am.
Mhm.
I've been single for a little while, but like in the best way. And
Uh-oh, she's single, y'all, with that voice, okay? I don't know if you have any viewers that are men, but
don't sleep on
she's
me
ready.
now. But I'm in my, single soft girl era,
Mhm.
and just learning about myself, and I realize like I am more confident at saying what I want because I know what I want now, and not even just pertaining to dating, but just like everyday life.
And identity is something that is supposed to be taught when you're younger as well, you know? There are
Mm,
people who are literally leaving the house at 18. They got their finances in order. They know themselves. They can articulate themselves. You know, it's just like when I see people, I'm just like, wow, there was a lot that I did not receive. And then we have this sector of the internet that's like, well, dang, how much do you expect for parents to do? And it's like, a lot actually, because you're
yeah,
making a whole person. Like, that's literally what you're, it's a making a person from scratch is what parenting is.
yeah,
So unfortunately, like, all these things kind of come with the territory. But
they
yeah,
do.
you're absolutely right. Like, when we discover our identity later in life because it wasn't cultivated when we were younger, that is also another way that we can end up in these friendships and relationships that just really don't benefit us. And while it's not a direct, line to like, oh dang, that's my mom who didn't do that, it really still
Right.
is, because had you learned that, when you were younger, you wouldn't dare. Like, I mean, I have friends that I met, over the course of my life, and I just knew they were so much more self-actualized than I was. And it was
Mhm.
like, dang, so that's what happens when you have like a really good upbringing.
Yeah. Yeah, like real solid.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had that too, like people that are like, I feel like I get a lot of my insight from clients, and they
Mm-hmm.
tell me stories, and I'm like, wow, like you really did break up with that person because they were out of line. Like, how did you do that? Like
Yeah.
for me, I'm always trying to make up an excuse, like maybe like you could figure it out. No, they disrespected you, and you weren't having it. I'm like, what?
But then, people like that get such a bad rep. And I think and
Yeah.
I don't know because I wasn't one of these people, but I'm assuming that when you are taught that from the moment that you come out of the womb, it's a little bit easier to just stand on business. But for
Yeah.
somebody like us who learned it later in life, sometimes the opinions do get to you. Like,
Yeah.
I've been called a bitch many times simply because I'm like, no, I don't really want that, or I'm not interested in that, or this happened. So as a result, I'm going to respond in this way. But
Mhm.
I think that it's just so hard to remain that way or to become that way as an adult because it's just so many people that are not for you standing up for yourself.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Absolutely. So, what options do you have to find peace when dealing with a toxic mom?
Another good question. So I want to say first that there's a difference between finding peace and then keeping the peace. So let's talk about keeping the peace because I think we
Okay.
probably got a lot of peacekeepers listening, and I
Mhm.
definitely used to be one of them before. I was a peacekeeper for the longest time, like literally just like you said, making excuses for why my mom showed up the way she did, even thinking on her behalf, like, oh, she didn't mean to say that. Like, this is probably what she meant. So it was almost
Right.
like parenting myself in the shadows as she parented me out loud very toxically. So
Mhm.
I think that keeping the peace, is obviously you just like, well, this is what I have. And yeah, I know that every time I go around her or speak with her, like these are the feelings that I get. But I'm just not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna kind of let status quo remain what it is. And that's my mom. That's what a lot of people do. So that's definitely an option. Like that's a choice that you're making. But other choices, to actually get real peace, I would say there's really only one choice. Now, the choice that you choose is going to open up options for you. So let me explain, because I'm speaking real rhetorical right now. But the only thing you can do is have an honest conversation with your mom. So either you're going to keep the peace, or you're going to, sit down with her and tell her how the things that she's been doing have made you feel, what you need from her, what your requirements are. You're going to articulate yourself. There's an honest heart to heart conversation that y'all are going to have. Now, how your mom responds is not up to you. I meet a lot of women that say, I would never have a conversation like that with my mom because I know how she's going to respond. That very well may be true, but I think that trying is so important because it frees you. When you try and someone acts a fool like you kind of assumed that they would, then it really does free you to be like, okay, well, I tried my hardest. I said everything that I could possibly say. They weren't willing, and now I can move forward with my life. And a lot of women are stuck in between, like not really wanting to keep the peace, but then also not wanting to have that tough conversation. And it's literally like a purgatory, like literally hell is where they're at.
Mhm.
So I think your first step is definitely to talk to your mom. And you really don't know how she's going to respond, right? Like a lot of moms respond negatively in the moment. Like we've actually had that. So my husband's mom I feel like she don't know how to have relationships with women. I'll just say that like in a blanket way. It's a very long story, but that's a long story put short. She has all daughters and also, all sons rather. And then also, didn't grow up in an environment where her and her mom had a very good relationship. So I don't think she ever learned how to do that. So we actually had some challenges between the two of us, which really meant like between my husband and her too, because we're a unit, and she really didn't understand that like marriage is a unit. So he had to definitely give her sort of an ultimatum, like, this is the way that you're interacting with my wife is how you interact with all women. She just is the only woman that is calling you on it. And if you keep treating her like this to the point where, maybe we even get divorced or something because she can't tolerate it, I'm never talking to you again. And
Yes.
she did not respond well to that. Like, girl, in the moment, she was cussing and they just fussing back and forth at each other.
Oh,
But I respect her because it didn't take long. It was that same day she called back and she said, you know what? You're right. I don't know what I got to do, but I don't want to lose my son. And that's why I say there are two different types of moms out there. Like they're the ones that have way more bark than they have bite. And I think that she's one of those because we haven't had problems with her to this day. That was, God, probably 5 years ago that happened. And while she still is very toxic to most other people, she knows how to act with us. Like she does not cross those boundaries and lines. So I think you have to give yourself a chance, give your mom a chance, give the situation a chance to see what happens. Because although she might respond negatively up front, if she really does have any maternal instincts inside of her, that's not going to last very long. But you also do have moms like my mom where, you try to have an honest conversation and it's all expletives and that thing lasts until their dying days. And I say that to say, I haven't said this publicly, but my mom is dying right now. She's actually on her deathbed. And I never expected us to talk again, but like now it's going to be final. They don't think she's going to live beyond the next few days or so. My sister actually thinks that she is gone now because she's been on life support for a while. So she is, you can kind of tell, I guess, when their body is just there, but their spirit's gone. So I say all that to say that like she doubled down on that. That was like, we had not talked since the moment that conversation happened. But you don't go into the conversation expecting a certain outcome besides your freedom. Because if your mom decides to change, you're free. If she decides not to, you also are free. Now, those journeys of freedom look very, very different, but at least I did everything I could to salvage this relationship. And then on the back end, if something like this happens and your, parent is dying, you're not one of those children that's rushing, oh my God, I got to fix it. Cause at the end of the day, I really did try and she didn't. So,
Yeah.
like I said, I think the first step is a conversation. Attempt that conversation and promise yourself, because you owe it to your inner child, that if she does not change, I am not going to tolerate this, because it has impacted so many areas of my life. And you're not going to really be able to build a future. Like the future y'all see me have on the internet, that's not something that I would have ever been capable of if I would have continued to have the dynamic that I had with my mom. I knew, like, Nigel had set me down one day because, I mean, we were just having so many arguments, and I told you I would circle back to this eventually, but the way that my mom impacted me was, I don't know, and I don't know if you have this experience or anybody out there does, but you know how you have somebody that, like, they just be fucking with you, but you can't, there's no evidence for it because they're like,
Yeah,
well,
you
I didn't
can't
do that.
explain it,
Yes, it's
so
like,
then you think, am I making this up?
am I crazy? So you're literally inside, you're just going insane. And then other people are meeting them and they're not that way with other people. And you're like, oh
Yep.
my God, I know I'm crazy.
Yeah.
So it was really like that. I mean, for years and years and years, I mean, my whole life. But then I have someone else that's watching this. And then Nigel's just like, well, I mean, that nice old lady be messing with you. And I'm like, yo, you just don't understand, bro. Like the stuff she be saying. So he would really see like the way that she impacted me. And it got to the point where, like, we would have conversations, and after the conversation, like, I'm just snapping. I mean, I'm going off in the house. I'm punching stuff. It got to the point where Nigel would literally have to lay on top of me at night to prevent me from, like, going off in the house. Like, I would black out and be doing stuff. Like, I woke up with scratches all over myself. Like, I don't even know what happened. So I always tell people, like, I was never suicidal, but I think I could have died because I had, like, suicidal gestures in response to some of the things she would say and do.
Right.
And Nigel would be the one to have to tell me the next day, like, yeah, you grabbed a butcher knife and was trying to stab yourself. And I'm just like, why was I doing that? Because I don't want to die.
Right.
So it's like, it just became too unmanageable for me. And one day he sat me down and he was like, so, okay, I can handle the way you're acting. I'm a full grown adult. I saw my mama be the way she would. Like, you don't hurt me when you be calling me names and stuff like that.
Right.
And he's like, but what about our daughters? What about our son? Like, what about whatever children? Because we didn't have kids at the time. What about whatever children that we have? They're not going to have the sophisticated mental processes that I do to be able to say, you know what? Mommy's just mad at her mom and she's lashing out because of that. She don't really mean to do this or that. They're just going to be watching you. And even if you don't call them names, they're going to see you lashing out. You don't remember any of this, but they will.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn. In that moment, I was like, I can't have her anymore. Like, not in this format. So either she has to change and come into the future with me, or she has to stay in the past. And that's when I, organized the therapy session, went horrible. We don't even have to go into how that went because that was the last time I talked to her. And at this stage, it'll be the last time I ever talk to her because she's not waking up from the coma that she's in right now. So if mothers are listening out there, like, y'all don't, please change, okay? This is somebody speaking and having seen it go from literally to the person's ending days where they just doubled down on this. Like, come on, y'all. The healing is not as scary as how I'm sure she's feeling right now. Like, the way my sister said that she was full of regret, like, she can tell that she wishes she did things differently. And I'm not saying, like, specific to me, but just life in general.
Yeah.
She had cancer and didn't ever do anything with it. Like, she wasn't willing to do any treatment. So that's again, like how I say to you all, that the way someone shows up for you, stubborn, is how they show up in all areas of their life. She showed up stubborn when it came to her helping herself heal. So that stubbornness, I'm sure that she's had moments of regret, being just laying confined in a hospital, wishing she would have done things differently. So I just want mothers out there who have the opportunity to change to just think about long term, how are you going to feel it's not your daughter's responsibility to think how is she going to feel when you pass away. It's yours to think how you're going to feel as you're passing away, and realize that you don't have another chance to make it right. Because I'm always on a daughter's side, when they choose to estrange, because first of all, it was hard to get there. That's not easy. Like, it's hard for your mom to die, I'm sure. I mean, I can't really relate to that, because to me, I lost her a long time ago. So this is more of like formality. But it also is really hard to just lose your mom in general. Like, the figurative loss of your mom, and realizing that, like, she's never going to be who, not just me, but her grandchildren, her son-in-law, like the future family. Because I had in my mind, like, I know that one day I'm going to have this wonderful, successful, beautiful family. And dang, she's never going to enjoy that, because she's too stuck in her ways too. So it's always, for me, it's like the daughter made such a hard decision, but it wasn't really a decision. All she did was choose her future. And you just weren't someone she could take into it.
Yeah.
That was a lot, Kat.
Girl, you got me over here tearing up.
Oh, it's your voice. It brought it all out of me. I told you I had to say any of that out
I'm
loud.
like, just tell me all your thoughts. And then
And I'm doing it.
I love you. I
You
mean,
like,
this,
where do I go from here?
yeah, no, I have so many thoughts, but like in the best way, because I feel like I love how because you can articulate your words way better than I can.
Mm-hmm.
And when you said, so kind of a backstory is like, me and my mom have a relationship, but her and her mom don't have a relationship, and that's because of her mom, which is my grandma.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it it's terrible. I always think of my mom of like, I can't understand how that may feel to think that your mom doesn't want to talk to you anymore just because you try to bring things to her attention. But kind of like what you said, she's stubborn, and she's actually isolated herself from the majority of the family because, again,
Mm-hmm.
it's much easier to say everybody else has a problem and has an issue than it is to look into yourself. So for me and my family, with my mom, and again, because of the relationship with them, my mom does have her toxic traits.
Mm-hmm.
But I always just think about her relationship with her mom, and her possibly going to her deathbed and never
Yeah.
ever talking to her again. And I often have to have these conversations with my mom. Like, I know it hurts, and I can't even say that I understand how you feel,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to mourn her now. Like,
You have to. Yeah.
yeah, she made the decision. And the thing is, my mom and her sister are always open to actually have a conversation with her.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the damage was so bad that they would never speak to her again. It's just a simple fact that my grandma won't. She'd rather live in her reality than to open herself up. So I always just tell my mom, like, it may very much get to that point where she may leave us,
Mm-hmm.
and you never have that closure conversation that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And so to hear you say that, like, that's literally what's happening right now as we
Mm-hmm.
speak, really, like, whew, brought some emotions.
Yeah, because I did mourn her. That's why when you said, like, that you were telling your mom you have to mourn her, it's like, even just saying you have to accept the reality, because I think that's what I did. Like, a long time ago, when we had that failed therapy session, I told her, like, hey, this is so that you can be a part of my children's life in the future, because as our relationship stands, and I didn't blame it on her, I was like, this relationship I do not want them to be exposed to. So
Mm.
unless this relationship changes, and granted that meant her, but if this
Right.
relationship doesn't change, then I can't, I can't take it with me. And
Mm-mm.
when she didn't respond well to that, I already thought about what's going to happen if she passed away. What if, like, I'm such a long range planner
Yeah.
that when you go not talking to someone anymore, and really was a soft estrangement. Like, I told her, whenever you're willing to have the conversation and be accountable, I'm open. Call me. So it wasn't even like, hey, I'm never talking to you again. F you. Like, I didn't say that. I did
Mhm.
much like your mom, but from what it sounds like, a different thing that I did is that I felt my feelings then, and at that moment she was gone to me. And that's why now, where she is actively dying, I haven't participated much. I've given my sister support because I know that she is actively losing her mom. But for me, I did lose her so long ago. So while it is sad that, this is all happening and that this is her reality, I I don't feel it the way I think that an average daughter would. And that's because I already have. I don't have to do it again. It's already done.
Yeah.
I think the hardest part for me is that knowing that, and this isn't really just about my mom, this is about anybody, the only way that she can give or get peace is to die. And that's sad, because I think that there were other routes she could have taken.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you were mentioning, like, damn, she didn't get to experience the wonderful life that you've created for
Mm-mm.
yourself. And
Nope.
it's sad for us to hear that you're losing your mom, but it's almost like it's her loss.
Yeah, it really is. I know one of my friends years ago, and it always stuck with me. She said, your mom is missing out on what could have been the best chapter of her life. And when you think about that, though, that is self sabotage in action, y'all. So that's why when I talk to daughters, you got to make the decision that you have to make for you to have the life that you want to have. And just know that it's not personal. Your mom is likely in a cycle of self sabotage. And you couldn't give her healthy and her digested. Like, she doesn't know how to have healthy relationships. And in order for the cycle to break, though, you have to be the one to decide that this is not going to continue. Even when I think about the reason why I do the work that I do, it's not like, yeah, it's for my daughters, it's for me, but it actually is for my mom. It's for the younger
Mhm.
version of her who wished that somebody was doing this and her mom would have been able to not treat her that way. I know that my mom, at one point was very much so in the same shoes as me, wanting her mom to be different, and she didn't. And all that happens when your mom doesn't and you keep going is that you get hardened. And then you expect people to tolerate your behavior. And then it just keeps going and going and going until someone like me says, you know what? I'm going to choose a different path, and walks away. And in that walking away, though, I think I've given my mom the biggest gift that she'll ever get. And she'll one day see it, because I think that people who die are able to see everything. She'll see that the gift that she got was that the curse ended with her, because it's not going to continue. And if I have to give her that without ever talking to her again, then I'm okay with it. It's like, I'll fight you for you, because this is what you always wanted.
Yes. Wow.
Mhm.
That is heavy. To be able to say like, "Hey, I'll take that,"
Mhm.
and go through that pain and suffering that you went through, but still want to do it for her,
Mhm.
that takes a level of emotional maturity that some of us will never see. So thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing that.
I
I
didn't plan to. I told you brought it out of me. The situation just brought it out.
yeah, like I don't expect for you to come on here and like just tell everybody what you've been through. Like you don't, none of us have to do that, but I knew that you still had things worth speaking about, but I think a lot of people are going to really really utilize the stuff that you said because it's so real, and it's so real and relatable and so specific. So thank you so much again. And lastly, I want to know, on a good note, what are some things that you're looking forward to or that you're doing right now in your life?
Oh, so I'm looking forward to being done with this dissertation. That is what oh my God,
May.
graduation is soon. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. But I think that from there, I mean, it's really on, because like, who doesn't listen to somebody with doctor in front of their name? So
100%.
it's like, I definitely expect for all the work that I am doing and have been doing to just really take head at that point. So I would say continue to look out for my YouTube channel. We definitely have a lot more planned in terms of content. Like, I'm posting instructional videos on how to recover from mother-daughter trauma every Monday. But we also have, like, eventually I want to have a full week of content. So every day is something different, but it all relates to mother-daughter trauma recovery. Some things for couples, some things for teens. So it's going to be a whole network, okay? So
Yes.
definitely look forward to that. But that's years in the making.
Yeah. No, and
Hmm.
you'll get there.
Yeah.
And I see that for you for sure. And it kind of reminds me of like I saw recently, I don't know how true this is again because the source, but it said that Issa Rae is trying to create her own like studios.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
like production studio or whatever company, however you call it. And it just when I saw that, I was like, she is. First of all, I love her. I think she's an
Yeah.
incredible like human, and
Hmm.
the way she vouches for our, Black women in our community. And I'm just like, I looked at that and I was like, she really said, like, if there's not a space for it, I'm gonna create it myself.
Yep.
And
That's how I feel.
yeah, I feel like that's what you're doing.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of like I think we had Oprah first, and then I guess now we have Issa
yeah,
because she really is doing similar, but like in a more modern way. Because
right,
Oprah is a little older, but yeah, I'm not gonna say I want to produce other people's content per se, but
right, right.
definitely, yeah. I just want women because I know how it feels to sit with this pain, and
Mm,
it is an everyday thing. It's so if I can just make so much content to the point where every time you feel like, oh my God, I just need an encouragement, you know that there's a new episode of something airing or a new thing to go look at on my Instagram or a new like whatever. That's why I'm saying I want to be present on every platform because the generational curse of mother-daughter trauma is actively present at every single second of every single day. So I feel like to fight that, I have to show up and be visible, even though
mhm.
I would rather not have any of these platforms. But that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, that's part two.
Girl.
Well, that concludes our episode. Thank you so much for being here, Dylesia. I appreciate you so much. Seriously. I know like you are super busy and everything, and I'm just so happy that like you took the time out of your day to do this with me.
Yeah. No, I love this. Thank you for the opportunity.
Let's stay connected. You can find me on Instagram at imbalancedwithcat or on my website imbalancedpod.com. Give me a follow or a podcast review, and I'd love to share it on air. Thanks again for listening. Hope you enjoyed this show.